have horse rescue, which my wife is in charge of. And we grow grapes, make wine, and also I collect cars. So beautiful day today. I'd like to show you around. Well, this is the type of car that we work on quite often, and I've done now for probably 50 years. It's the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL. This particular one is a 300 SL Roadster. We also do the earlier model, which is called the 300 SL Gullwing. This particular car is a client's car, and he takes it on a rally. Mostly it's not a show car, so it has to run good. So he brings it in periodically, and if he's having any issues, we can sort them out, make sure the brakes are good and everything is adjusted properly. If you like, we can move on into the shop, the workshop. So I've been working on cars for, I would say, it's been 50 years, over 50 years, hard to believe. I worked my way through college, started doing body and paint work back in the mid-60s, and I just never, when I graduated from school, I never really did anything else. I've always been fascinated with automobiles. My grandfather, when I was 12 years old, bought me a set of tools and put a workbench up in our garage, and then we built a go-kart together. This was back in 1959. That was when the first go-karts were starting. So from that time on, I had my hands in motors, and the body work came a little bit later when I started college. But my first place was 1966, and it was a small body shop. And over time, I started to do custom work. And then over the period of a number of years, I got into the specialized auto restoration and just sort of fell into the Mercedes thing. And we've pretty much done it since then. We occasionally do other cars, but pretty much just the Mercedes. So this is a nicer one than that. This is a 1961. It's called a big brake car. It was sort of a transition car between the in the different models they made. They built the 300 SL Roadster from 1957 to 1963 and a couple in 64. So it's sort of mid-production. They're all the same. They're wonderful cars for touring events, as opposed to Ferraris and some of the other ones that are a little fancier and maybe a little hotter. But these have the reputation for making it start to finish. And so they're very popular to take on touring events. Some guys belong to the Gullwing group in different clubs. But they're great cars, and I've just had the good fortune to have been working on these now for 40 years. There's another Roadster. You have your choice of colors, a red one. We've got a couple of white ones in the shop, a black one. They're all pretty similar. The brakes on the early cars are big drum brakes, and on the later car they have disc brakes. And then the very last cars had an alloy engine, which drops about 50 pounds, but it helps the handling of the car because you have less weight on the front. So a lot of the artwork you see up around here was done by my son, who now works with me, working in the shop, and he also handles sales, Drew. But for a while he was a fine artist, and had a business for a number of years representing artists internationally with their work, but decided he wanted to come home and work with me, and so that's what we're doing. This particular car it's a 1956, and it's called a 300 SC, and this is probably the most elegant car that Mercedes made, certainly post-war. It was designed and built by Mercedes-Benz in Sindelfingen, and they they only made about 200 and I think it was 250 or 249 of the cabriolets, the roadsters, and the coupes, and they're just perfection in terms of the craft of auto body, the coach building. Everything on this car is handmade. I remember the first one we did was a cabriolet back in probably 82, and it was a show car. It was a very nice original car, but the guy wanted to take it to car shows. So we took it apart and did a complete restoration. And just to give you an idea of the sort of the meticulous work that was done on these, when we got these side panels, there's little side panels on each side that come off, and when we got them stripped down on both sides, they were signed, I forget the guy's name, I think it was Niemoller or something, and dated. And he was the fabricator that built those by hand. The fenders are made out of 7 different pieces of sheet metal, you know, each one conforming to the area, and then they're welded together. And it's mind-boggling, the craftsmanship that goes into something like this. A truly hand-built car, and probably the last of the real grand Mercedes. They made another one called the Mercedes 600, which is a big limousine, but it's still stylistically this is really something. 190 SLs, we don't restore them, but some of our customers have them, so we service them, take care of them. I think this one is here to be sold. Our client wanted to move on to something else. This thing I believe has only 15,000 miles. Original interior, it's just a stunning car. Let's say this is another interesting car. A little off what we normally do. I just bought this. I didn't have really anything to do with it. It's a 1947 Cisitalia called a Nuvolari Spider, an SNN. It's different. The Italians, especially on these small race cars, the styling is quite flamboyant. The quality, of course, is nothing near to what the Germans were doing. But still, for the money, this was a sort of a budget race car back in the late 40s. And the styling is stunningly done. Even has a little of the, especially for that time, the aerodynamic thing going, which I'm sure these had no effect on the car, but is part of the stylistic thing of aerodynamics, which took hold, I guess, mid-50s, I would say, with true aerodynamics. So, yeah, this is a beautiful one, all hand-built, everything is handmade, and the finish on these, probably the guy that built this had like 2 or 3 weeks or a month to make the whole body. So, he couldn't spend too much time on perfection. It was, it needed to be functional, and the door gaps or whatever, if they were a little bit off, it didn't matter. If it had some waves in the body, that didn't matter either. It was certainly not that precise. So most of these cars are Mercedes. There's the E-Type. It's a hot rod. Another customer sent this to us and decided that it was too much for him. It's got a later engine and racing suspension and a hot rodded motor. And I tell you, for a car that would be great for a road car, you can't beat the styling of the E-Types. They're just they're gorgeous cars. So moving along, you'll see up there a couple of old go-karts. That one was built by Sears, and it's old enough to remember the go-kart craze. It was kind of like the hula hoop and the pogo stick and a lot of different crazy things. Davy Crockett that sort of went coast to coast as a craze. So back in 1956, they started making go-karts, and they caught on, and there was tracks all over the country, and races and manufacturers, and it even got to a point. This is a go-kart boat. It has a fast go-kart engine, and you sit on it, and the thing goes about 40 miles an hour. I mean, you almost have to be out of your mind to drive that. It's crazy and it's fast. I'm getting a little too old for the boats. I still like the go-kart, so I have a collection of about 40 vintage go-karts that over the years I've restored. And there's a whole movement and club, it's coast to coast, of guys that are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who had them when they were a kid and nostalgically still have a connection to them. So they get together, you know, a dozen times a year in different parts of the country, and you see these old guys flying around on, you know, 60-mile-per-hour go-karts an inch off the ground. As I said, many of those started as chainsaw motors, and they put them on these little, like the go-kart my grandfather and I made back in 1959 was a lawnmower engine and just tubing that we welded together. So these are all functional, and they have a club that promotes these karts, and they organize races and help with restoration, and they get together half a dozen times a year, and it's a lot of fun. So in the summertime, I'm gone once or twice a month to someplace to run these old things. So this is kind of it. Pleasure for me to show my workshop and hobby shop, and I hope you'll enjoy it. And be sure to go down to the Petersen Museum and see all of the wonderful exhibits they have down there. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to click subscribe, comment, and like for more videos like this one.